General accesses those books. And actually, and I'm trying to raise this issue to all of us. We see one way of also handling the about issue of corruption. It is dealing with those officers and not yes in a particular office, in a particular police station. This guy who is in charge of traffic, the money that is collected. That's why you will never miss police traffic on the law just to correct something to deliver. If your vehicle is held in a police station, the much that you get out with, you will not get it in full. So, Madam President, Henry, help us probably to address the issue and probably to enlighten and to enlighten ourselves. Even as we say, the corruption is a high office. We are also supposed to deal it whereby we can be.
Thank you. Thank you. Kuri, are you done? Hello?
I'm done.
Kuri, can you hear me? Thank you. Thank you. Sandra, can you hear me? I think we can have Sandra and Joy, then we can address those first, and then we go to the others, individuals who have requested for the mic. Sandra, if you can hear me. Joy, can you hear me? Hassan, Mr. Hassan. Even as we wait for the others to raise their concerns, I think there are two first issues that have been raised. The first speaker raised the question of how we can reach out to advocates. I want to draw your attention to the Law Society of Kenya page and the page of the President of the Law Society of Kenya. You will notice that we have posted a toll number. That toll number provides you with contacts with the Law Society of Kenya to report any case of arrest that touches on the demonstrations, that touches on Article 37. It's very important to know that as a society, we are monitoring and will continue to monitor because it's our duty under the Law Society Act, Section 4, to monitor any atrocities, any unconstitutionalities that are orchestrated on the members of the public. And that's why we have that toll number. If you don't have it, you'll be able to check on the Twitter space of the Law Society of Kenya and even the space of the President of the Law Society of Kenya, the page, the X space. You'll be able to find a toll number where you can be able to address that concern, especially when you've been arrested without any reason, or you've been incarcerated beyond 24 hours, or you have your rights under the Bill of Rights. Remember, the rights of individuals as citizens stretch beyond the right under Article 37. So whichever right that you feel has been undermined, perhaps it's very important that you actually inform us so that we'll be able to have our teams address to it. The President indicated, and I think she has indicated in other forums, that we have advocates across the country, in all the counties and in all court stations, to address concerns of violations of human rights. So do not hesitate at any moment to perhaps address these concerns to us. And now that she's here, she'll be able to perhaps reiterate that position. The second question was the issue of cash bail, the letter to the police. Remember, there is no requirement under the Constitution. In the hierarchy of laws, the Constitution is supreme. The right to picket, as contained under Article 37, is not a right that is subject to statute. I do not know any statute in this country that provides for the requirement that the members of the public must notify. But there is what informed the question of giving a notice to the members of the public, especially when you want to exercise Article 37, was for purpose of requesting the police officers to give you security. But again, a notice can be issued publicly. A notice can be issued on social media. There is no requirement that you have to write to a specific individual to exercise a constitutional right. The drafters of the Constitution did not anticipate a situation where you have to seek for someone's consent to exercise that right. It's inherent, it's fundamental, and for that reason, it cannot suffice that you have to write. What if they refuse? It means if they refuse to issue you with to issue with directions, that means your right is violated, and that's the reason why the drafters of the Constitution did not give anyone the right to guarantee you permission to demonstrate or to exercise your rights under Article 37. The last question that was asked, even before I invite the other questions, because I can see the advocates are already on the session, was the question of cash bail in police stations. I want to ask you to look at bail and bond policy directions. These are documents that are available online. The bail and bond policy directions as to on the question of police officers giving you cash bail are available. And those policy directions provide a range of approaches. A police officer is supposed to give reasonable bail, just the same way when you've been presented in court. But remember, when you are at the police station, you are an arrested person. When you are in court, you are an accused person. Of public prosecution, who approves charges. Any charge, any criminal charge is approved by the by the Director of Public Prosecutions. And even before they approve, they have a policy on plea taking. They have to look at the case, they have to look at the facts, they have to consider the evidence before they approve a charge for any offense. Those are laws within our country that actually regulate prosecution of such cases. And so when you have been arrested in a police station, you are just an accused person. You have not been charged with any offense. Because if you are to be charged before a court of law, by the time you are presented before that court, the Director of Public Prosecution must have approved that charge, must have looked at the evidence presented, and there are so many cases to that effect. And it's very important to note that police officers do that duty of investigating and presenting the evidence before the Director of Public Prosecution. But since we are deliberately speaking on the question of arbitrary arrests, if you think you have been arbitrarily arrested and you have been denied bail, then that is where, of course, the policy on cash and bond at the police station come in place. The police officers are under that policy. Have been given powers to release you on a free bond and issue you with directions to appear there, depending on the charge. They also have discretion to give you a certain amount that is reasonable. The word is reasonable, that you are able to come back. Of course, there are serious cases, serious offenses where they will decide to hold you until the following day and present you in a court of law. And in a court of law, they request for more time through a miscellaneous application to have you present to continue the investigation while they are holding you. But remember, that power to hold you beyond 24 hours is power that is given to the court. It's not given at the police station. They have no mandate. They have no powers to hold you beyond 24 hours. But they have power to hold you within 24 hours. Beyond that period, then it becomes an unconstitutional incarceration. And so you have a right to demand through your advocate or individually to actually request to be released on a reasonable cash bail depending on the offense. The offense of demonstrations, and you have seen the precedents that have been created by our courts of law, that you can actually proceed. The courts have released people who are accused of picketing on a free bond. It means that this is an offense that does not warrant you to pay a huge amount of money. And therefore, unless you are accused of an offense of destruction of property, and it's very important that you know which offense you have been accused for about or of at the time of arrest, you have a right to demand and seek for information as to why you have been arrested. There is an occurrence book where a report of your arrest is actually reported. You have to request that they show you. If they refuse, ensure that your next of kin or someone else can be able to check, or a family friend can be able to check on the OB and demand to know which offense you've been arrested on, so that based on that offense you're able to know, to advise, to indicate to your advocate or any other person representing you that I've been arrested for this offense, I did not commit, or I committed this offense and I need your legal assistance. So once you have that understanding, it's very important to know. We are asking you not to. It's very important for you to know, if you want to exercise your right under Article 37, please do not commit other offenses under the Penal Code. Remember, theft or stealing or robbery with violence, those are offenses under our Penal Code. Remember, there are offenses to do with destruction of property. Remember, there are offenses to do with assaulting other people, violating other people's rights while they are demonstrating. And it's very important that you stick to your right to demonstrate. Do not be subjected to destroying property, because that is not contained in our constitution, because that becomes an offense under the Penal Code, and you'll be charged for that offense. And if indeed it's true that you committed that offense, it's very important that, of course, the court will know that you did not participate. And of course, the threshold in criminal cases is beyond reasonable doubt. If the prosecution is able to prove that you committed that offense, then you will suffer the punishments. But it's very important that you subject yourself as per the provisions of Article 37. Do not go beyond the violation, the provisions of the Constitution in demonstrating. And picketing does not involve those other things. And therefore, that is why we are very specific as to the exercise of that right going forward. I can see several advocates. I can see PLO. I can see Wakili Steve. Perhaps if you can allow me to ask, to allow the other members to ask questions so that you can be able to address them. If you can confirm kindly, Steve and PLO, that you can hear me. You have the microphones. So we can ask several questions even as you have the microphones. PLO, you can hear me? Steve, any of you?
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear, Mano.
Thank you. Thank you, PLO. Perhaps if you can allow us to take a few other questions on this issue so that you are able to address the same appropriately. Thank you. We have Kevo. Kevo, are you still there? Kevo Kevi or Joy? Kevo Kevi. Can you guys hear me? If you have a microphone and you think you're not going to drop it so that we can give other people opportunity to speak. Lekishon, can you hear me? Yes, clearly.
question on this matter is arising out of the recent decision by the court that the police are not supposed to use violence or even what do you call it, tear gas and all these other violent means. And the following day, I believe, the police proceeded to do exactly what they were told not to do by the courts. The question I have is, is the Law Society, and I'm asking Madam President, going to take any action in that respect so that the police don't interfere again? The other aspect related to that is the question of anticipatory actions, such as writing to the international community, maybe the UN or some other body that, so that, because this thing now requires, we look beyond our borders sometimes. We have friends, we have enemies, but I think it's good to look outwards, so that this right is protected. Right now there is a lot of impunity around it by the way the police has been behaving. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Madam President. I hope you have heard those questions.
Let me answer some and then you can answer the rest. With regards to our response, we'll be issuing a statement. Just we've been analyzing what's been going on in terms of the bodies that were collected, were identified. Let me not say yet identified, the bodies that were found, and what the communication that has since come from the DCI from the last two press statements, and we'll be issuing our position on the same. As LSK, our position is we thank the DCI for calling upon us to work hand in hand with them. But the challenge that we continue to have is some of these bodies, the identification process, we will analyze closely, due process is followed, even how investigations were done on this matter, because it's of national importance that irrespective whether they are arising from the Mandamano killings or not, our security agencies should provide us with adequate security. And so such killings happen in such a magnitude, and we need to see the repository where there are missing names register that can coordinate or collate with regards to those missing persons that have been found. We still have tracing people who are being found in mortuaries arising from the Mandamanos. We still need accountability and investigation. In the swift manner it was done for this particular incident to be done. We have police officers that have been identified that are still on the streets, and we hope we will not see them on the streets tomorrow, because we will censure our investigative agencies if this is what they are treating us to. We need police that have killed, police that have abused their powers to be held accountable. It's not enough that the Inspector General has resigned. That is command responsibility, but we also want those individual police officers that have abused their powers, that have killed, to be held accountable. Let them answer before a court of law. And we'll be looking at also different avenues with regards to who are our partners, local and international, that we can work to ensure that we leave no man behind and we have justice for all the victims during these protests. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. Just to add to what the President has said, of course, we have cases in court as the Law Society, and you've seen the orders that have been that were issued by the courts on the question of the abuses committed by the police officers. As the President has indicated, we have several matters touching on the individual office bearers, office holders within those spaces. I'm talking about the DCI. I'm talking about the Inspector General Police. I'm talking about the Nairobi area head. I'm talking about the director of the National Intelligence Service, and those are the institutions that have actually been involved in this process and are in charge of our police force. We have held them individually responsible, and those matters are ongoing. And I think that's the best we can do. We have also instituted proceedings in form of contempt of court, especially on a continued violation by individual police officers, individual OCSs who had a number of the police stations where people have been held beyond 24 hours. And those cases are ongoing, I believe, as the Law Society will ensure that the individuals who violated these rights of the members of the public are able to be brought to book, and they are able to take up the responsibility for those violations. Before I bring in PLO, on the questions, kindly,
Perhaps, perhaps
yes,
the you haven't. I don't think Madam has answered I'm happy with the question, the way she has answered the first part. But the second part of my question was the idea of escalating to international bodies that can help us, whether it is after the fact or whatever. It's good to bring it up to international level, to the relevant bodies under the UN and so forth, so that we are able to they are able to help us deal with the criminal aspect of the way the police are handling this matter.
Thank you, Madam President. Are you there? If you can be able to take that.
We are working on modalities, yes, because we know there are the special rapporteurs that also deal with the same. And so some have reached out, and so we'll be preparing our reports and sharing so that they can also do their own independent investigations. But I can assure you the different agencies are already monitoring what is happening. So some have shared their views and their concerns, and that's why we are trying as much as possible to also work with the different agencies so that we have one front with regards to how we are dealing with these matters. But yes, some have reached out already. The scenario is in the country.
Thank you, Madam.
Thank you. Thank you. ARN, I hope your question has already been answered. I want to invite Daniel. Daniel, can you hear me?
Yes, I'm hearing you. Good evening.
Kindly proceed.
Yes,
Good evening.
I have two questions. And my first question is this. I was asking about, as tomorrow, we are protesting tomorrow. We know you have some politicians who are planning to disrupt our protest so that they may look ugly. What are the steps or measures you as law society of Kenya have taken to avoid that case? And another question. This question I wanted to ask for many days, but today I think it is the right time to ask because I see Dr. Miguna here. There was an issue that was raised by Miguna on Twitter concerning the killings that happened in Githurai. And he challenged the Law Society of Kenya and other agencies about investigation, you to take out investigation, and even said that many people were killed, almost 400 people, and they were cremated in Kahawa barracks. Can we get that clarification? And if it may be, you may invite Dr. Miguna to give us clarification, because that question has been hitting me for many days.
Thank you for that question. I will take two more. Perhaps then I can allow Madam President to address the same and the advocates on this session.
Hello, can I go on? Yes, thank you.
Who's speaking?
Kevin speaking.
Please proceed.
Thank you for the opportunity. Mine is simple and straight. We witnessed abductions going on, and we talked about it, but it seems there's no action being taken. Recently, I've seen a clip, somebody being abducted with the police who are in civilian attires, and some are guarding them in a uniform. What is the Law Society doing to curb this? Because I say we keep talking and then there's no action. Like, I mean, we're not a banana republic. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Madam President, if you are there, you can pick those, even as I invite the other colleagues to address them.
Let me pick this one and then the other colleagues can answer. Now, with regards to what we are doing,
Thank
we
you.
picked up that complaint and will be also, we had moved the court with regards to some of these complaints, but also we'll seek to move the court further in terms of issuing declaratory orders with regards to what is happening. Because we have sought habeas corpus, but unless we're able to identify the name of that individual, then we can seek for the court to demand he be produced before a court of law and either is charged or released. The other option would be to seek for a declaratory orders for the courts to pronounce themselves, particularly on the kind of abductions that are taking place in this country.
Thank you, Madam President. To add on what you have said, I think the High Court issued orders that were open-ended, and this is very important for the members of the public to understand. This was not; these orders are not limited to the initial habeas corpus and the initial abduction petition that the Law Society did. It's very important to note that the Law Society did habeas corpus application. A habeas corpus is a production of the individuals who have been disappeared, who are not able to be found in police stations, but who the members of the public know were actually abducted by police officers. And in those several suits that we filed in petitions that we filed in court, in one of them, Honorable Justice Mugambi directed that the individuals who were arrested at the time they were 13, any other future arrests. So the order was open-ended to include any future arrests that the police officers must do their duty. Remember, the Constitution provides for these things. This is not new under our Constitution. The Constitution provides that if you have been arrested, you have to be informed of what you are arrested for, and you have to be produced in court within 24 hours, and charges read to you, and so that you can actually respond to those charges. It is a responsibility given under the Constitution. What the Law Society is doing is to actually bring to the attention of the court on those constitutional violations. And of course, the court has a duty to give interim directives. And that's why we said to avoid members, people, Kenyan citizens who have been appointed to public office, using those offices and abusing them and using them by ensuring that they violate individual rights of the members of the public, we will actually institute proceedings. And that is what we have done under their individual names. If you are an OCS commanding a particular police station and your police officers have violated and gone against the Constitution to hold an individual beyond the period stipulated in the Constitution, they have proceeded and actually armed a peaceful protester. They have proceeded and actually murdered an individual. Then they have a duty to answer to those violations in their individual capacity as the bosses of those police stations. And therefore, I think as a Law Society, we are doing what it takes to ensure that we hold responsible the people who have been put in office to actually keep law and order. Remember, we have had several citizen assembly discussions on these questions of the Bill of Rights and the rights of arrested persons, individuals who are suspected to have committed an offense. We indicated earlier that the first 2 weeks of the demonstrations, as the Law Society of Kenya, we monitored the first demonstration. There were close to 400 people arrested in the evening of that demonstration. And in that evening, 397 were released. The only 3 who were left and who are presented in court without a charge was Boniface Mwangi and 2 others. And in court, the police officers refused to present these individuals in court. And we found out later on that the DPP refused to charge. Why? Because the evidence presented by the police officers did not meet the threshold to institute a suit. And remember, some of these cases are the ones that actually bring the backlog within our courts. You bring a frivolous case just for the sake of it to charge someone in court. You actually clog the court with frivolous cases which are actually bound to be dismissed. Then we blame the court for the backlog. And I think I appreciate the fact that the DPP looks into these cases case by case and actually determines which one should go to court. And therefore we had the Boniface Mwangi and the two others released at the parking lot in court without a charge. Subsequent to that, we've been following on those arrests that have been in place. And I think it's very important that we hold the individuals who hold these offices responsible. It's no longer tenable to actually hide behind the office that you sit in and assume that personal responsibility will not be taken upon you as an individual. I will invite PLO perhaps to address the other questions that have been asked. I think there's a question about, I think the president has addressed the question of Miguna and the investigations and Kahawa barracks. Kevin asked a question on the question on witnesses and abductions and police officers actually using plainclothes and use it without identifying themselves, arresting individuals. Kindly, PLO, if you can hear me, if you can proceed. Thank you.
Thank you, my friend and learned colleague Manuel. Well, once again, welcome on board to all patriots who are here listening to, into this space. And I've been listening to a couple of questions, save for the one that you've raised, Manuel. There's this particular question on the use of tear gas, the water cannons, based on the decision and the compliance with this particular directive. So I think I will answer them in quick succession, if you permit me a little latitude. So one, the other day, around should be towards the end of last month or early this month. So the High Court sitting in Malindi, issued temporary orders stopping security agencies, and that would mean the National Police Service and any security agency incidental thereto, from using water cannons against protesters, from using tear gas against protesters, or just persons, who are we, the people who are protesting against not just the Finance Bill 2024 as media, has been misreporting some of the media houses, but protesting based on the governance issues that we would like addressed so that we chart a new path as a country. So these are still the orders granted by the court, and that would mean when we appear on the streets tomorrow, to exercise our rights against, excesses of power and Article 37 of the Constitution, then police or whoever will be deployed to quote unquote man or deal with peaceful protesters, because we are peaceful, should not in any way unleash terror through water cannons and tear gases. So those are still the orders subsisting before the courtroom. So violation and defiance or defilement of these particular orders will mean that the police or any security agency are actually acting in excess, in contempt of court orders, and of course that would consequently warrant further actions against those who perpetrate such terror on the protesters and those who assemble technically to do that which they're required to do under, of course, the precincts of the law. So this other question on the dress code, for the identification for police officers. Well, the National Police Service, which is technically the umbrella, of different, organs or security agencies, including DCI, including GSU, including ATPU, including, anti-stock theft, and different, security agencies underneath the National Police Service, including AP as well. So they are governed, by law, of course, first by the Constitution as the apex or the grand norm of laws in the country. And secondly, by the National Police Service Act and the subsidiary legislation and regulations thereto. And one most important thing that people do forget is about the National Police Service standing orders as at June 2017. So this particular standing orders, when you quickly go to chapter 31 of these standing orders, it talks about the dress code regulation. And I will move swiftly to standing order number 22 and chapter 31 of the National Police Service standing orders. So standing order 22 talks about plainclothes, officers. Of course, there's conduct of when are police officers supposed to dress in plainclothes and when a police officer is supposed to dress and identify themselves, as law established. So standing order number 22, I would just read it verbatim. It talks about police officers other than those who are attached to 1, DCI, 2, to the Internal Affairs Unit, and then lastly, you have the VIP protection sections and crime branches who shall wear uniform when on duty. So that is the provision under, standing order number 22, chapter 31 of the dress code regulations under the National Police Service standing orders. And then further, the standing orders direct that, if you don't conform within those particular exemptions, however, even these particular exemptions require special circumstances, and nowhere would Article 37 fit into special circumstances where even officers from DCI or officers from Internal Affairs Unit, and VIP protection sections would meddle into a peaceful protest. Because the first question you should ask yourself is why would, officers attached to VIP protection sections when, 2 or so weeks ago after the untimely and sad demise of Rex Kanyeki, may his soul rest in eternal comfort, the officer who apparently, was alleged to have, shot him, it was alleged he works at the office of the president. So why would an officer who works at the office of the president, which I would assume based on standing order number 22, works for the VIP protection, or maybe not, because when you look at OP, Harambee House, the way it's wired, different departments require different manning. Of course, there are officers who may be working at the office of the president, Harambee House, but they just man either the main gates or the doors that lead to the offices of different persons who work at that particular building. So why would police officers within the VIP protection unit, within the Internal Affairs Unit, involve themselves in peaceful protest? So the bottom line here is that identification of police officers should be at all times, either if you don't have, your badge or ID or your service number, which is normally displayed, at the left, subscript of the respective officer, then you are only in defiance of the law. So this has been happening time without numbers, and I think most of you, if not all of you, have seen this pop with maroon or red type of double cabin with persons who mask themselves up. So why would you unleash persons who no one knows about? The protesters don't know about these people. But what is even more saddening is the officers in uniform are working hand in hand with these other persons who haven't identified themselves. They've masked up, they've put all those gears. You don't know exactly who you are dealing with, whether this is a genuine officer or this isn't a genuine officer. And I think LSK has filed. Manu, I think, will shed more light on that, on the identification, the mandatory identification of police officers on duty. Because if you are deployed to calm down protesters, these are peaceful protesters, so technically there's no violence that should be arising. But it gets to a point where violence is instigated by the said police officers who are on duty just to protect, any, form of, property, destruction, and so on and so forth. Even in those particular circumstances, it is required that I know who exactly am I dealing with as a protester, because I'm not carrying any weapon. I'm not carrying any other thing that would perhaps make me not be peaceful as a protester, and that would require that proportionate force, not excessive force, but proportionate force meted on violent, protester based on the circumstances and situation of the moment. So even in places and circumstances where protest may have, perhaps not turned out as it was meant to turn out based on, the prior planning, the kind of force that should be meted out by police should be proportionate to, the opposite, reaction, what exactly is happening on the other side of the road. So, as I wrap up on this, dress code matter, that is, the position of the moment. But even then, we have all these standing orders. It's 1,195 pages of the National Police Service standing orders. But the question we should be asking ourselves is, how many, in the service? Because right now it's hard to tell whether it is a service, it's the National Police Service, or if it's a force still.
PLO, kindly proceed. We've lost you.
All right.
PLO, unmute yourself. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello, thanks.
Kindly proceed.
So, I was saying right now, we have degenerated into.
Go on, PLO.
We lost you again. Okay, even as we wait for PLO to return, I think he has already candidly addressed some of the concerns that were raised, especially on plainclothes police officers. It's very important to know that as the Law Society, we have instituted proceedings on those abductions, and some of the issues you have raised in court touch on the failure by the police officers to identify themselves. And this is very important for you to note. And as citizens, you have to actually take precautions at every time. If an individual identifies him or herself as a police officer, then you have to request that they produce their number, their practice number. And the standing orders, as PLO has indicated, require that you have to actually put on the badge. There's a badge that is given to those officers to put on while they are discharging their duties, so that it's very easy to identify these individuals. What the National Police Service is doing is actually allowing individuals who might be involved in kidnappings or illegal offenses to actually arrest members of the public. And that's why we have concerns with regard to people disappearing, people being found in quarries and all that. It's very important that when you're met with this situation, you have to demand and especially what happens in public space. I saw that today there is someone who was kidnapped or was abducted by police officers in Westlands, and there were the people around that space included uniformed police officers. It's very important that you demand for the identity of those individuals, even when they fail. And it's important that this episode was recorded because we can account to those faces. It's very important you also seek that they indicate to you which offense they are arresting you about, so that you already know that you're being arrested for a specific offense. Sometimes, and I know in most cases, they don't indicate who they are. They are wearing masks. They fail to identify themselves, and that's why we are in court today. Previously on this question, we are hoping that the court will give directions, even though the Constitution provides for these issues. And that's why we always run back to court to seek for interpretation and to seek for confirmation of violations, because it's only in court that we can confirm these violations and document the same to ensure that this does not happen to anyone else in the future. We can open up the discussion. I want to call Mr. Daniel. I think if you have spoken, kindly drop your microphone so that we can allow as many people as possible. Mr. Daniel, can you hear me? If Mr. Daniel, you can't hear me, Kisia, if you have the microphone, kindly. Kisia? Dr. Kasi? Dr. Kasim? Mohammed, can you hear me? Kisia, please proceed if you have the microphone. I can see your hand. Kindly unmute yourself so that you are able to speak. Mohammed, are you there? Can someone confirm that my microphone is working kindly? Kisia? Engineer AM? Engineer AM, can you hear me? Free? Free, are you there? Steve, can you hear me? Mohammed Adan. Mohammed Adan. Mohammed, kindly unmute yourself. Mohammed.
Can I proceed?
Dr. Kisia, proceed. Dr. Kisia, proceed. We have had internet issues. Kindly proceed.
Okay. Mine is a question that has been asked by someone on the comments. He said that there are some people who are arrested in Bondo. but I think it was last week. So until now, they haven't been released. And upon inquiry today, they said that they were transferred to Siaya police station. So I don't know how that can be addressed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kisia. Free mind.
Can you hear me? Hello?
Kindly speak, we can hear you.
Okay. Mine is to appreciate the information that is being laid out so that people can be aware of the steps done. So I hope we'll all meet tomorrow and we'll spend make sure we don't violate other people's and yeah, that's all for me. And thanks for the session.
Thank you. Mtu Jazi, Kenya.
Hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Steve.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. It's an honor that you have considered people with not much of a following. So my question will digress from Article 37 of the Constitution, and will just inquire about. So the clarion call has switched from reject finance bill, and it went to Ruto must go. Now we are advocating for good governance and accountability in government. Now, the question is, what will essentially happen if our president decides to resign? We know that that will be a difficult thing to come to reality, but there is a possibility. And if the possibility becomes reality, what might happen? I would like to get clarification on that, and thank you very much.
Thank you for those contributions. We'll go straight to Jasiri. I can see we have a number of legal experts within the space. Jasiri, kindly, if you have the microphone, you have 2 minutes. You can ask your question. Jasiri, can you hear me? If you can't, Mtu Jasi, if you have the microphone, please. Watchhawk, sorry. Okay. Kisia, you're back. Kisia, can anyone hear me?
I can hear you. I think I'll drop the mic so that you can give.
Yes, you can hear you, Mr. Manuel.
Kindly drop so that we can have the rest. Free mind. If you don't have the microphone, if you have the microphone and you don't have something to say, kindly drop the microphone so that other people can join. We have Gashi Mwaura, Mesha Kirwa. You have the microphones, kindly.
I think I can see PLO is back. His mic had dropped.
Yeah, PLO, thank you for coming back.
Hi, can you hear me?
If you have the mic. Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you, PLO.
Yeah, I was to finish up on my submission, so I don't know where you guys lost me, but I think I just take 2 minutes to finalize on what I was saying. And like I said, identification by police officers, is mandatory, and it only makes the kind of work that they're doing to be as transparent as possible, because if you have so much to hide, and that only means you have to find dubious ways to try and address exactly what, the kind of hidden agenda you have against the protesters. So when you look at, again, the Standing Order number 24 under Chapter 31 on the dress code regulation for the National Police Service Standing Orders, it says, that despite the following instructions, with regard to, the fitting or wearing and even the upkeep of the police uniform and equipment, shall be adhered to at all times. And it gives a list of exactly what police officers should, by all time, have with them. And this includes the badges and of the rank, which shall be affixed, to the shoulder, straps with, wire pins, rings, the bayonet and the scabbard equally shall be worn on the belt, behind the left hip. The belt shall be worn fittingly, tightly around the waist and horizontally. In the police officers in police uniform shall tie, the same through the, retaining straps of the trousers, the cloth badges, with dome fasteners, all those kind of things, even the collar badges. So the identification comes as a package. So if a police officer doesn't have all this save for the police officers in the VIP, protection, the internal affairs unit, the DCI, whose mandate actually are even limited not to interfere, with protesters, because only one with ill motives and working in those three of the tripartite of the institution that I've mentioned will have a different motive to interfere with the protesters. So I hope the matters, filed by, LSK on compelling, police officers to be identifying themselves and do away with this kind of plainclothes, dress code, which I think for me is being used to address different agenda, and which is quite different from what, police officers are deployed on the streets to do. So with that, I think I'll get it back to you, Manuel, and I'll be listening in to more questions as time unfolds. So I'll just be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, I think I need to recognize the presence of Steve. He's a co-convener, Public Interest Litigation Committee of the Law Society of Kenya. Council member Steve, welcome. I can see Wakil Ndegwa and several other advocates listed up. Perhaps if you can take several other questions. Mr. Nyakwama Hamisi Dennis, if you can actually raise your questions. And then we can have Livingston, and then Justice. If you have the microphones.
Yes, good evening.
Good evening, kindly proceed.
Yes, I'm raising a concern about Kakamega. We have had a plan of mechanics who have been paid to go and counter the protesters, the peaceful protesters tomorrow. So I don't know it can be managed from the other side. Thank you.
Thank you. It's important to state that the mandate of the Law Society is limited to violations of the rights of individuals who exercise their rights under Article 37. There are issues that we are not able to address unless, of course, you supply us with that information. Remember that whereas we exercise our duty as an institution to perhaps challenge decisions and actions of individuals that actually undermine the rights under the Bill of Rights, it's very important that you know that we only act on the basis of the evidence presented to us. If you feel that indeed there are people who have been paid to undermine your right to demonstrate peacefully, then it's very important that you document that information and share it with the Law Society. We'll be able to take the necessary action, including challenging or taking the individuals to court and the individuals concerned in violating or actually curtailing your right to Article 37 and any other right under the Bill of Rights. Mr. Livingston, Are you there?
Yes. Oh, yes. Nyajeni.
Kindly proceed.
Oh, so mine is just I'm directing my question to our LSK president about this.
We lost you. Are you there? Livingstone, are you there? Justus, kindly take over the microphone even as we wait for Livingstone. Justus Okumu. Paul. Jonette Paul.
Okay, good evening.
Good evening. Kindly proceed.
Yeah, mine is, first of all, I want to thank the LSK for really guiding the people and helping us understand our rights under the Article 37 and the civic education you've done over through the times of these demonstrations and picketing as we really put the government into account. So my greatest concern about today is in an occurrence where an individual is abducted and, worst case of all, murdered. Does the accountability end at murder, or how does the justice end until? How does it come to justice until the said family of the victim feel justified? And my second question about what is going on currently at Mukuru Kwajenga, the Kware dump site. I would like to confirm, was there altering with the evidence that it was burnt the previous night? And in such a situation, how does the LSK counter so that the victims can find justice as the citizen can find justice? Yeah, that's all.
Thank you. Thank you for that question. I think the president has heard you. Madam President, if you are there, if you can address those two concerns, even as we proceed, if you're there. If you're not there, we can allow another advocate. Even as we wait for the president, Komwansa, are you there? Kevin, counsel? Kevin Omwanza, kindly proceed. If you had the questions. PLO, are you there? Komwansa, proceed.
Yes, I
If you
could
come
just
on, right?
ask him to repeat the question kindly.
I think he asked two questions about the abductions and murder. Does it end at murder? Does the process end at murder? And what is supposed to be done after a person is found to have been murdered? He also asked a question about the Kware dump site and the burning of the crime scene and what is supposed to be done. Those were the two questions, Kevin.
Well, first to the first question, if he calls it murder, of course, we have the penal code, and the penal code, of course, provides for the penal consequences for an act of murder. It's a capital offense. If investigations are done and the officers who are involved are found, then the law will take its course. But then again, I get where he is coming from, because he's asking this question in the context of the protests that are ongoing and the abductions, and of course, when somebody is abducted in such a nature and killed, it complicates the whole thing, because then it's difficult even to identify the perpetrator, because some of the perpetrators are in uniform. It's a special kind of a crime, but still, if there is goodwill from the security agencies and they decide to investigate, and the officers are found, then it will be treated as any murder. You remember the Willy Kimani case, when the officers were implicated in the murder of Advocate Willy Kimani and the other people who were in the taxi with him. The officers were prosecuted, and they were convicted, and they were sentenced. Now, the same applies to abductions. Now, to the second part of your question, what happens to Mukuru Kwanjenga now that they have banned the crime scene? I listened to the director at DCI and when they were doing a presser in the morning, and they termed the place as an active crime scene. It baffles me as it does you that they had to burn it up if they actually did it. And I think that is something that we will, as the Law Society of Kenya, perhaps you need to look into and provide direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Kevin. Meshach, are you there? Meshach Kirwa. And even as we get Meshach on the speaker, I think we have Mugweru. James, if you have the microphone, kindly if you can ask your question so that at least we're able to take a couple before a response is issued. We have Justice. Martin, kindly unmute yourself and address your concerns. Martin. There have been allegations about banning the crime scene at Kware, and I think as the president indicated earlier, of course we are following up the process keenly, and even as Kevin has answered the question of murder, as to whether the process ends at murder, it doesn't end there. If you committed the offense of murders, as Kevin has indicated, it's a capital offense. We have to follow it up to the end to ensure that the people who committed those offenses are brought to book. Of course, there's the narrative that has been presented by the DCI. And of course, if they are in control as they purport, we expect that they need to give a report as to what happened and when it happened, and perhaps investigate, because they have capacity, resources to investigate and report to the members of the public as to what transpired and how those bodies were found there, and whether they are victims of the demonstrations or they are victims of a serial killer, as they actually indicated. So what it means to say that the places it's a crime scene, it means that they are still investigating and they are fact-finding. It's important to note that they have that duty, and sometimes it's very difficult, us as the law society, to interfere with an investigative process. It is their mandate, but we have a duty to hold them responsible and accountable in the information that they actually share to the public. And so we'll continue to find out and continue to record the bodies being discovered and profile them in terms of ensuring that justice is met, in terms of the families of the deceased person getting closure in terms of facts as to what transpired and how these people's lives were taken away. Junet, are you there? Jaunet, Paul.
Hello, you can hear me? Okay.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I'm still here. So, considering there is a point I want clarification. Considering how the abductions happen and there is no one who is taken to any police station, and there is no recording of the arrest and everything. It just happens chini ya maji with the rogue cops who, as PLO mentioned, they have no name tags, no uniform, so you can't even be sure if they are cops or not. is it some kind of hard to follow up on who did what, why, and how?
Yeah, thank you for that question. We can take one more. Evans, can you hear me? Or Martin? Kindly, if you don't intend to speak, it's always important to switch off
Hello?
your microphone. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Actually, it's interesting that my question was just asked by the person, by Janet, who just spoke. But on top of that, I first also wanted to give the Law Society of Kenya your flowers. The lawyers have not only been part of helping those people who have been arrested, say whether they are
Hello.
artists or content creators or anyone from Kenyan, you guys have been able to come through, and also the filling in the gap of information. I believe that is the biggest role that you guys have played, and for that, kudos to you guys. Keep it up and keep informing people of what they need to know. But otherwise, Junet has already asked what I wanted to ask. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't know whether PLO you're able to respond to that question quickly so that we take another.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, proceed kindly.
Well, on the issue of follow-up, I think that's the question that was asked by one of the patriots on this particular space. Follow-up isn't a problem, especially for rogue officers or thugs in uniform. Uniform is in court because the kind of regalia and paraphernalia, they're putting on is not synonymous to what, police officers who are governed by ethics, who are governed by the National Police Service Act and the regulations, who are governed by the National Police Service, standing orders, or equally our own constitution should not be behaving that way. So LSK, does its work to, at the end of the day, to protect, to defend, and to uphold the rule of law, and that will mean compliance, with what is happening, beyond compliance, follow-up, accountability, and transparency of what is happening beyond, the LSK as a society and as a body. So accountability for these rogue cops, and I think LSK has been on the trail of just trying to gather what they need to gather, just to bring to book the perpetrators and people who are unleashing unnecessary terror on the citizenry against what is required below, officers who kill at will, officers who maim at will, officers who perhaps abuse, misuse their powers because at the end of the day, there's someone who has their backing. But as Dr. Martin Luther King once said, that the arc of the moral universe is so long, extremely long, but someday when it bends towards justice, it bends, and there is no other escape route. So LSK will keep on doing the kind of work they do to monitor, the situation, and just at the end of the day, the lives that we lost, the wrecks, Kanyekis, and tons of others that we lost along the way. At least the death wouldn't be in vain, because what we want, not just as lawyers, but because we are first citizens, before we become lawyers, and our duty, is to amplify, the voice of the members of the public, to be there for them when they need us, and just to be the third eye, and check on the excess of power across, all organs and state agencies. So yeah, the follow-up will be there, and it's been there, it's ongoing,
So when we have all these people, brought to book, on the evidence, that we have collected, and that the ODPP hopefully, shall approve the same to kickstart, the trial process, watching briefs for the victims of all, these excesses, meted on them. Yeah, that we shall continue doing, and we've always done. And we will continue doing even, when tomorrow dawns and in the other days as well. So I think with that, Manu, I have responded to the question. So again, keep asking questions rather, and we will be here to respond. So back to you, Manu. Thanks.
Thank you, PLO, for those submissions. I can see Dr. Miguna, if you have the microphone,
Yes.
perhaps if you can proceed.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak. I want to express my gratitude to the Law Society for being patriotic and for stepping in to defend the right of Kenyans, the rights of Kenyans that have been seriously subverted by the members of this current regime. I had a question asked which I wanted to attempt to answer, not as an officer of the Law Society of Kenya, but as a member of the Law Society of Kenya and as a citizen of Kenya. The question that was asked, and I don't think it has been answered, is what happens when William Ruto resigns or when we remove him from power, as might happen tomorrow. I believe that this is more of a political question than a legal question, but I'll answer both ways. First, I've often said, and many people have, and I can see NATO is in the body of the listening, we maintain that the citizens of Kenya have full rights under Article 1.1 of the Constitution to take their sovereign power in their hands and exercise it in accordance with this constitution by stating to William Samoei Ruto that due to the numerous issues that have arisen, issues of tyranny, issues of abductions, issues of looting, issues of failure to listen to the country, proceeding to order his troops to pass the Finance Bill 2024 that had been widely rejected by the country. They no longer have confidence in his leadership. They have essentially voted with their feet and have impeached him in the popular cathedral, which is the streets of the Republic of Kenya. Having done that, under Article 146 of the Constitution, which says that the office of the president shall become vacant if the holder of the office, A, dies, B, resigns in writing address to the Speaker of the National Assembly, or otherwise ceases to hold office under Article 144 or Article 145, or under any other provision of this Constitution. Which means that under Article 146C, the people can withdraw their support that they gave, the power that they donated to the president under Article 1, and can decide to exercise it directly. Once they do that, I submit, and I've suggested this elsewhere, that because the people have also expressed their dissatisfaction in the manner in which the National Assembly conducted itself on June 25th, and therefore rendered its judgment against the Speaker and members of that assembly, plus even the Senate, because of the passage of the conflicts of interest bill, The people may decide through a consensus to nominate the Chief Justice of the Republic of Kenya to sit over a transitional process which would constitute or reconstitute the IBC and conduct fresh elections, and or do any other thing that the people deem fit. That is my suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Miguna, for those contributions. And I think we have heard you loud and clear on the suggestions that you've made. At this juncture, Abdurrahim, you have the microphone.
Thank you so much. My name is Abdurrahman. I am in Mombasa. I want to thank first of all the Law Society of Kenya for the role they have played in this struggle, for standing up for the citizens that were wrongly accused and arrested and those that were abducted. Sometimes this journey can be so scary and lonely, but with your support and your comradeship, it becomes easy and fascinating. My question, I'm seeking a legal opinion concerning citizens' arrest. The question of infiltration by goons and state-sponsored attackers that could infiltrate peaceful protests, as we are planning to protest tomorrow in the streets of Mombasa. We have organized ourselves into groups, especially for males, that are going to be notifying and identifying errant looters and people snatching probably smartphones and handbags from mostly females and members of the public, and destroying property in the streets of Mombasa City. So we needed a legal opinion from the Law Society concerning what are the laws that guide citizens arrest. How can we arrest such people, and what are the limits maybe that should not be what are the limits that should not be crossed, so that lest we are not accused of assault and probably all that maybe. So in citizens arrest, what are the procedures and what does the law say about arresting someone that has come to infiltrate a peaceful protest and causing maybe looting, snatching, and destroying public property and burning vehicles? Thank you so much.
Thank you for your question. We can take one more, Dio. Dio, kindly.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much. And thanks to LSK for this forum and for the support we've had so far during this struggle. Mine is with regards to the national flag, which has become our symbol during the demonstrations. And I just want to know, what are my limitations of using the flag? I bought one, and am I legally allowed to hang it, say, on my window or somewhere in the house, or where am I limited so that I don't also break the law while I use the flag during my the process of demonstrating us? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we have KD.
Yeah, I'm here. How you guys doing?
We're fine.
I'm just
Proceed.
thank you for everything. Thank you, LSK. Thank you, Madam President. We have a lot of faith in you, and I just have been trying so much to be on, like say, pass on my questions, but I think most of the Kenyans really want someone to listen to them, which is very, very impossible. I believe a good leader listens, unlike what we have in our country. Maybe just a suggestion, if it really makes sense, if you guys can actually have a YouTube channel that you can upload all these talks on, because sometimes it's very hard to keep up with, so that you can just know you have like a particular talk you can actually go and listen to at your free time, because sometimes it's hard to follow up on everything. But just to get to my questions, the first thing I wanted to ask is with regards to the first incident that happened when these demonstrations came up, and the parliament was, I won't say intruded, and people got into parliament, and my main question comes with regards to the mace. So it was said that the mace that was in parliament was a dummy mace. Is it legal to have a dummy mace, especially when you're passing the law of the land in parliament? And we know, or rather the speculations that are going on, that some of the reasons why we had the massacre in Githurai was because the mace was being sought after. So can the mace be replaced if it is stolen? Or what does it call, for example, if the people took the mace from the parliament and it goes missing? Can the government just go ahead and replace it with another mace? That's my first question. The second question is with regards to the abductions. So if a plainclothes cartel comes to arrest me and abduct me, rather, and I have neighbors around me who are actually looking, and they can actually understand. They understand what is happening. They know it's illegal. Can they protect me, or is it unjustified? We know we can get afraid because they have ammunition and stuff like that, but I saw a clip somewhere whereby a man was being abducted, and his two sons, almost I think 4 years old, they came and grabbed his legs. It's all over social media. I believe some of you have watched it already. But the question is just, can I defend my brother or sister from any abduction, even if it means, because we have strength in numbers. I don't know how possible that is. And then the last question is to the LSK as a body. I believe most of the legals in Kenya are members of the LSK. And you realize most of the people are coming out. We are coming out to you for knowledge, to us, number one. Number two, we're coming to you for sensitization on the understanding the constitution, which is a major problem in the country. And then thirdly, we just need someone to talk to. However, it's so unfortunate that some of the people who are putting us in this situation are lawyers who are actually not sensitive on what it means by being a legal. The members of parliament, most of them are lawyers, and they end up passing laws, but we know they have a lot of graft issues and some very integral backgrounds. What can the LSK do with regards to these particular individuals in terms of, like, say, trying to bring them out so that we can actually have a body that we know is independent and has a grasp that can actually be able to get rid of all these guys who have a bad reputation? For us not to say the lawyers have this ABC and D. We know a lawyer can actually go represent someone in court and they get compromised and a case becomes invalid or null. How does the LSK as a body govern, or rather protect itself from such individuals who end up now tainting the image of the whole whatever profession? You realize you're the only profession who actually go with the term "my learned friend." You know, we really respect you, but there are some people who just end up spoiling everything for your good work. I think I'll leave it at that for the other people as well. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for those questions and contributions. I will allow
Mono, can you hear me?
DL. Yes, PLO.
So
If you can address some of the
I can
concerns
take up.
kindly so that we don't have it.
I can.
Yes.
I can take up the one on national flag and parliamentary mace. Yeah. So the Patriot who asked about the national flag. I mean, the scope, should you display it whatever, or should you carry it with you? So when you look at Article 9 of our Constitution, it talks about the national symbols and the national days. And one of those national symbols of the Republic, that is Kenya, is you have the national flag. Of course, the national anthem, the coat of arms, the public seal, those are just extras. But the national flag is one of the national symbols. I will again refer you to a statute that equally talks about or establishes the national flag, the emblems, and the names. So that is the National Flag, Emblems, and Names Act, Cap 99 of the laws of Kenya. It's a very, very old act which I think should be repealed by now because it has overstayed its use. Because it first commenced its force of law on 10th of December 1963, and then after it was assented to on 9th of December 1963. So those are close to 50 plus years technically of having this statute, and with the emerging jurisprudence, then I think it's high time Parliament saw it fit to repeal this kind of legislation. So what this particular statute provides when it comes to the national flag, I just take you to Section 3. Section 3 of this particular statute talks about the prohibition of improper use of emblems, names, and likeness. And there is another one on prohibition of display of certain flags. So the wording of this Section 5 of this particular statute is that no person shall display at any place or on any premises any flag or banner, or even permit any flag or banner to be so displayed, being in either case a flag or banner other than a specified emblem which is reputed to belong or is held out by any authority as belonging to the territory of Kenya or of any particular part thereof other than the area of a local authority. And then it goes ahead to talk about that any person who contravenes this particular subsection 1 under section 5 shall be guilty of an offense and liable to fine not exceeding 5,000 shillings or to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 6 months or to both such fine and such imprisonment. And then the last subsection under this section 5 talks about this particular provision of the law applying or binding the government. But here's the gist. The same particular statute talks about display of flying of national flag on a motor vehicle, and as it currently provides, it talks about the president, the deputy president, the chief, justice, the cabinet secretaries, the speaker of the National Assembly, speaker of the Senate, all those kind of people. But the question we should all be asking ourselves, if the display of such national flag as a treasure and as a national symbol actually displays, our own, ethics, our own, integrity, our own kind of conduct and moral compass as a people. So it shouldn't be an offense for someone to carry with him or her flag to the protest. It shouldn't be an offense because technically, that's what, patriotism should be all about. And legally, because we have quite a number of statutes that were enacted prior to the, Constitution of Kenya 2010, and some of these statutes to date are not in compliance with the Constitution. So freedom of conscience is one of the rights provided under our Constitution. So if your conscience, which should be respected by the state, to carry with you whatever national flag of our country, whatever size it is, to as a symbol of protest against excesses perpetrated by the government, then by all means do. So you carry your flag because there shouldn't be any offense. At the end of the day, is our own constitution should be our guiding star. So in as much as we have statutes that are not fully in compliance with our constitution, then it only means Parliament has much more work to do, to try and revise all these, I would call them a cake, or even defunct statutes, because some of the, provisions I keep reading, in all these statutes that were enacted prior to the 2010 Constitution, most of them have been either overtaken by events or they still, maintain what we call the rigidity of of a way of people or a means of livelihood by the Kenyan citizen. So you carry your flag tomorrow, please by all means be proud of it, and show the kind of affection that you need to show as a proud citizen who wants the best for their country, as a citizen who wants accountability, as a citizen who wants transparency, as a citizen who wants the government to account for every cent of public funds. Yeah, so that is it when it comes to the national flag. So on the parliamentary mace, well, a mace technically is a symbol of authority of any parliamentary proceedings, just to begin, and it shouldn't cost more than even a single life, and it shouldn't compel the state to unleash terror on its people because of something that can easily be replaced. Because when you look at our own country, I think what is ailing us most is we don't have strong institutional foundations. And by strong institutional foundations, I mean institutions, that speak, to the language that its people would want to say it speak, on. And as you've seen, our parliament, in as much as we have, this particular mace, which is technically, sanctions any proceedings in Parliament, and I know Parliament, could replace this, but the fact that today, and in this modern dispensation of political climate, I think the legislature hasn't lived up to its expectation, even a modicum of it, because it is seen as an appendage and extension of the executive. And I would just give you two examples why, I would maintain that particular assertion. One, when the report of the consideration of the Finance Bill 2024 was to be tabled before the National Assembly, as by law, required, and as the standing orders of the National Assembly require, the chairperson of the Departmental Committee of the National Assembly, that is Honorable Kimani Kuria, who is, the representative from, from Molo, went to State House to give a press briefing on a report that he had not tabled before the National Assembly. State House does not make any laws. It is Parliament that is the legislative arm of government. It makes laws. I mean, it is an oversight, body. It is a representative body based on the powers we have delegated as a people, to them, directly and indirectly to the powers we have equally bestowed upon the, judiciary and even the executive. So the fact that you have, a legislator technically giving a press briefing apparently based on the concessions of, a bill that was still subsisting before the National Assembly tells you all you need to know. Because what business does status have, to interfere with the legislative process that underwent public participation in compliance with Article 10 of the Constitution? And what then does it say about the credibility of the report for the consideration by the Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning when it comes to the authenticity of the contents thereon? So you have, so many questions to ask yourself, in terms of where exactly does Parliament stand? Does Parliament represent the people, or does Parliament represent the executive? So, like I said, a mace is something that can't be replaced. But nonetheless, if we had, working institutions, then Parliament should have been an independent institution, free from the shackles, of the executive that, perhaps control exactly what, they should do. What bill should be passed? How should you pass this bill? What are the kind of quote unquote concessions, that need to be made for this particular report to reflect, the agenda that the executive has, in terms of accelerating its promises on the manifestos, if at all they've even done, close to a quarter of that. That is subject for another day. But Parliament should be held accountable because technically they have our direct power that we have delegated. And the fact that that particular mace was withdrawn, I would call it, being withdrawn. It wasn't stolen. That mace was withdrawn on the basis of, it was symbolic, because when you withdraw a mace, it means you have withdrawn the delegated power that we gave to the, members of Parliament to represent us and not represent the, executive, members. Yeah, so I think with that, I've answered both questions. So back to you, Manuel. You can handle, the rights of the arrested persons in compliance with Article 49 of the Constitution. Thank you.
Emmanuel, permit me. This is Ndegwa.
Thank you. Ndegwa, just before we bring you in, perhaps.
All right.
Yes, just proceed.
I want to just add something.
If you are addressing the same question.
I just wanted to add something about the question of the mace and the fate of Parliament following the event that unfolded. The mace is not an instrument that is to be taken with a light touch. The mace is the authority that the Constitution speaks about under Article 1, about the power and the sovereignty of the people. It should be noted that in the Westminster parliamentary system, Parliament cannot transact business in the absence of a mace. And it has a long history dating back to the 14th century and the 13th century. Previously, the mace, or rather the mace has always been a symbol or an instrument that was supposed to protect the monarch. And it was really historically a symbol, a weapon that was supposed to protect the monarch. And that is why it's always carried or held by a sergeant at arms who was at the disposal of the monarch at that time. Historically, it must be remembered that when we started the Judicial in 1958 is when His Majesty the King of England brought a mace from the Parliament of England to Kenya. It must be remembered that when we started the Judicial, the mace itself was brought from England, and it was brought by the governor himself. In 1963, when we attained independence, the mace was again introduced to Parliament by the late His Excellency Mzee Jomo Kenyatta. Since then, the mace has never, ever been withdrawn from the precincts or from the sittings of Parliament. It tells you, therefore, that for all those periods historically, the Mace has always been within the precincts of Parliament and a symbol of authority from the people. So the question of withdrawal of the Mace signifies the withdrawal of the supremacy of the people of Kenya. The supreme people withdrew the authority of Parliament. Remember, this Parliament was constituted by the people. So when the people exercised this aspect of withdrawing the Mace, it signifies to me that the Legislative Assembly, where the Mace belonged, authority was equally withdrawn. It doesn't matter whether the Mace was made of wood. It doesn't matter whether it was made of timber. It doesn't matter the material, the gold. The fact is that at the time when the Mace was being withdrawn, Parliament was in session. Therefore, Parliament lost its authority to reconstitute and constitute itself until such a time when the Mace must be reintroduced procedurally to Parliament. That is to mean that if in 1958 the Mace was introduced by the governors at then, in 1963 it's Jomo Kenyatta who introduced the Mace. It therefore mean the Mace also being a link between the executive and the legislature, then there must be a ceremonial aspect within which this Mace was must be reintroduced. But then there must be a conversation whether the people want the reintroduction of the Mace into Parliament. Because the Speaker cannot just go perhaps to Karioko and get another one shaped in that particular manner and then reintroduce it. The system and the mechanism that was used before must then be followed. But the question is, with Mr. William Ruto having lost the legitimacy and the confidence of the people of Kenya, can he then also reintroduce the Mace? Number two, with the current existing constitutional dispensation, where we are saying that we are purely presidential system, and we have seen historically the Mace being introduced by either the monarch or the president, in a purely presidential system where the president plays almost no role in aspect of legislation, who then shall introduce or who then is fitted to reintroduce this Mace in Parliament? To me, those are serious constitutional issues that must be relooked, and we cannot just wish away the aspect of the withdrawal of that Mace. One, it was withdrawn when Parliament was in session. Number two, it was withdrawn by the people. Number three, historically, the Mace has always been introduced by the president or the governor. And now we have a purely presidential system where the president plays no role. Then who is to reintroduce this Mace? And the failure to reintroduce this Mace, therefore, what is the fate of Parliament? Can Parliament still convene? Can Parliament still constitute itself? Can Parliament still legislate? To me, before I think the assembly reconvenes and gets from its recess, those are fundamental issues that requires to be resolved. Thank you.
Thank you, Wakil Ndegwa, for those contributions. And I think you've answered the questions that PLO equally weighed in on the symbolism. I think it's important to appreciate what was indicated earlier by PMO, that some of the statutes we are relying on the national emblems, flag, and basically the symbols of national unity are basically for symbolism. There is no law under the Constitution of Kenya 2010 that actually inhibits any member of the public to display the national flag. It's a symbol of national unity. It doesn't have specific individuals to actually run the flag. Of course, you remember there was a case in court with regard to the question as to whether county governors, the governors of our respective county government, can be able to run, can be able the flags in their cars, and of course, to that extent, of course, the court had to interpret. But when it comes to citizens, because these are symbols that are supposed to unite us, not separate us, not distinguish us. Running with your flag, or rather any other national emblem, it's a constitutional right. It's like if you limit someone to display the Kenyan national flag, it's like limiting them to sing the national anthem, because they serve the same purpose of actually uniting and bringing people of the Republic of Kenya together. I will invite Ochel Dudley to address the question of the citizen arrest, and I think that question has not been addressed. Someone asked the question about uploading these conversations on YouTube, and I believe, Madam President, you have heard that. It's a challenge from the members of the public that this information is supposed to be displayed, perhaps on the social media spaces, to enlighten the public on the questions of law and the interpretation of the law when it comes to Article 37 and the other provisions of the law regarding the Bill of Rights. Kindly,
I think, Banamano,
don't leave
before you
it.
even proceed, before Chiel pick up, I wanted to weigh in and add further, and saluting all the patriots who are present tonight. There's on the issue of the flag. For the longest time, as Kenyans, we have been sold fear not to associate with our country, and that has made us to not act as proper patriots. So whoever, and I saw some people even trying to sell the same fear to the families of our fallen soldiers when they used the flag to wrap the coffins, that is improper and against the law. And wanted to assure the members of the public that it is very much in order to associate with our flag, to raise it high as much as we can, because we need to remember Article 1 of the Constitution. It recognizes the sovereignty of this country belongs to we the people, and it is exercised by all those people in government by way of delegation. So we are the ones who have delegated the powers. So, and if you have delegated the power for them to use, means that power also is with us as citizens of this country, and we should not be ashamed to hold it high and as a sign of patriotism to this nation. And I also think the issue, as Mr. Ndegwa Njiro has mentioned, on the fact of the Mace, I do agree with the submission and further comment that the aspect of trying to portray that it was not the original Mace or all those issues the parliamentarians have been trying to push forward as a narrative to counter the magnitude of what it means to withdraw such a Mace is clearly trying to mislead Kenyans, and without appreciating that the fact that Kenyans walked into that assembly and withdrew that Mace was a sign of withdrawal of legitimacy, and the right procedures must be used to ensure that the same legitimacy is reinstated and authority reinstated in Parliament. I think I can call in Mr. Dudley Ochiel to also further comment on the issue of arrested person.
Thank you. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Steve. Dudley, are you there?
Thank you, Madam President. Manua, if you could kindly repeat the question.
Dudley, you're muted.
Okay. Manua, I'm sorry I didn't hear what the question is. I hope I'll get a chance to hear it again.
Yeah, the question was on the question of citizen arrest and whether the members of the public have a right to arrest any individuals who will want to, snatch mobile phones of the people who are peacefully demonstrating, or individuals who want to commit offenses at the vicinity of the members of the public, and how and whether the members of the public can be able to arrest them. Thank you.
Okay, I think I've seen that happening before. Maybe the first and second protests, the people who were arrested and handed over to the police somewhere around Tomboya and Archives.
D- Dudley, you're not clear. I hope.
Okay, I'm saying that I think the question of citizens' arrest is something we've seen happening before. If you remember the first and second protests, there were people who were arrested and handed over to the police. But then, on a pragmatic level, on a practical level, you also need to be mindful of your safety. If the goon is armed, you possibly can't arrest them. They could injure you or harm you. So it's also a matter of pragmatism. And if you'd allow me to add something further to the flag question, our constitution says that all law that preceded the constitution should be read with the necessary modifications, amendments, alterations to bring it into conformity with the current constitution. So we need to test some of these colonial laws. The flag statute is a colonial statute. It was meant to preserve the colors of the flag.
I'm sorry, Dudley.
Kindly, Dudley, unmute and proceed.
Okay. I was saying that on the flag question, the Flag Act is a colonial statute.
We have lost you, Dudley.
Dudley, are you there? Kindly.
He's muted. Unmute and speak up. Okay. You can pick some other speaker.
Wallo, kindly, you can, as we wait for Dudley's microphone. Wallo, if you can address your question, you have the microphone. If Wallo is not there, Morara. Oh, Wallo, kindly proceed. I can see your hand. Kindly unmute and proceed.
Thank you very much. I think all of us had been muted there for a second, but we are okay now. Now, mine is just a small question. I think I'm taking you back to Article 1. And I was having a conversation today, and I just wanted some clarity from our legal minds. You can help us understand. Now, Article 1 says we can exercise our rights either directly or indirectly through a representative. Now, if you can explain to me very easily, in the easiest of terms, how we are supposed to exercise it directly, assuming that we actually push the government to the wall to a point where, say, the president says, you know what, this is too much, I resign. And then the deputy, we say we don't want Rigathi. Rigathi says, you know what, I came with the president on one ticket. If he goes, I go. And we don't want the speaker or whatnot. What happens next if we push the government to the wall? How do we then now exercise ourselves, represent ourselves directly, knowing very well that power abhors a vacuum? And I know at some point the good barrister Dr. Miguna had addressed this, but I'd like some clarity on the same issue. How do we now get to a point where we don't slide to anarchy and find ourselves at the mercy of the military? Thank you.
Thank you, Wallo. Dudley, I think you're back. I don't know whether your connection is clear so that you can finish on your point and addressing the questions. If you can respond if you're back. But we can still take another question. We haven't had a lady address Sylvia. Sylvia, as we wait for Dudley, kindly. Sylvia, you have the microphone.
Good evening, everyone. Hello.
Hello, good
Good
evening.
evening. Good evening.
Yeah, I just have one question about what happened today and the propaganda that the government threw at us about that guy who is being accused of, like, he admitted of killing all those people. My question is, what if it was just a way of the government to like silence us, and then in the end they come out to say that there's not enough proof or something? What will happen to the DCI who came out rightly and deceived the citizens? And now how will justice be served to those people who are just left without closure?
Thank you. Thank you for your question, Sylvia. First, I think even as we wait for the advocates on this forum to address that question, let me first say that the government has a duty, and the security agencies particularly have a duty to ensure that they investigate and prefer prosecution to the DPP for purposes of actually instituting proceedings against individuals who have been identified to have committed the same offenses. And so, of course, the reason why we are monitoring this process, it's because we want utmost transparency as the Law Society of Kenya. We'll be following up on the law games with the process of investigation, and we'll actually call them off because that's part of our duty as the Law Society to check our government institutions and find out whether they actually deliver on their mandate. The question of citizen arrest, you have a right to arrest a person who commits an offense in your presence. And this is very important. If your phone is snatched by an individual and you have capacity to arrest them, as Dudley indicated, you can proceed and arrest them. Present these individuals before a police officer. If they refuse to actually apprehend them based on the offense they have committed, find means and ways to present this individual to a police station, demand for an occurrence book number for that offense, and perhaps then at that juncture you can be able to request the Law Society of Kenya to follow up on that. At the same time, we will hope that these officers can be able to follow on that offense and perhaps institute investigations and recommend prosecution as the law requires. But I think Dudley indicated that it's very important for us to also be very careful. Citizen arrest is a serious process, and it may lead to personal injury, personal, you might be able to be hurt in the process of arresting this person, and that's why this right to the citizens to arrest individuals has almost all the time not been exercised properly. So it's very important that at least when you are conducting this citizen arrest, you ensure that you record these occurrences, you are able to substantiate the offense that these individuals undertook. And at the same time, the more witnesses you are, the better, because an offense is an offense. And whereas you have that right, you are taking up the duties of the investigative agencies, and you're attempting to actually ensure that individuals take up responsibility for the offenses they do. And so be very careful even as you do it, because at the end of the day, nobody wants any casualties as a result of the process. If there are police officers within your vicinity, identify the people violating those rights or committing those offenses and draw those police officers to those offenses. Ensure that you get identity of those police officers so that when they refuse to take action, you're able to say, we reported to a police officer within the vicinity of the occurrence of the offense, but they refused to take action, and for that reason we feel that they undermined our right to apprehend a person who committed an offense. I can allow several other speakers to come in. Engineer AM, you've been having the microphone for some time. I don't know whether you have something to say. We have James. James, can you hear me?